Hello class, and welcome to my mini lesson on point of view. Today we will go over first person and third person limited and omniscient. What is point of view? The definition of point of view is the narrator's position in relation to the story being told, or the position from which something or someone is observed. There are three main types we will go over today. First, we will go over first person. The definition of first person is a literary style in which the narrative is told from the perspective of a narrator speaking directly about himself or herself. First person is someone talking about their own personal experiences. So it uses I's, me's, we's, my's, and us. A key thing to remember about first person is it can be unreliable as they only definitively know their own personal emotions, thoughts, and actions. Our first example comes from To Kill a Mockingbird, which most of us read our freshman year. It reads, "It was times like these when I thought my father, who hated guns and had never been to any wars, was the bravest man who ever lived." This is first person as the narrator uses I and my when referring to people and events. I and my are common pronouns used in first person narrative. Our next example comes from The Great Gatsby. "And I like large parties. They're so intimate. At small parties there isn't any privacy." This is first person as the narrator uses I when describing how they feel. I is a common pronoun used in first person narrative. For the purpose of this class, it is important to talk about how it can be analyzed and some possible effects that come from using this. Using first person perspective can create an unreliable narrator as the narrator only definitively knows their own thoughts, feelings, and actions, as we discussed before, which can also distort history or events within the story. First person can also bring more of an emotional response to the reader as they are more interconnected with the narrator's feelings as they see it through the narrator's eyes. A good way to remember this is to remember that humans are naturally selfish. Think of a child. They will almost always think of themselves first. And when you think of yourself, you're thinking, I want this, or this is mine, or I think this of myself. Our next point of view is third person. Third person can be split into two things, but as of right now, we're just talking about third person in general terms. The definition of third person perspective is a narration in stories where a detached person, someone who isn't directly involved in the action, tells you everything that goes down. These usually use theys, thems, he's, she's, hims, or hers. It is more useful when you need to express a character's emotions rather than one character's thoughts and feelings. There are two different types, omniscient and limited. There is a key difference between them. Limited is when the narrator only knows the thoughts and feelings of one character. And omniscient is when the narrator knows thoughts and feelings of many characters. Our first example comes from War and Peace. It reads, "Pierre was received as if he were a corpse or a leper. The eldest princess paused in her reading and silently stared at him with frightened eyes. The second assumed precisely the same expression, while the youngest, the one with the mole, who was a cheerful and lively disposition, bent over her frame to hide a smile improperly invoked by the amusing scene she foresaw." This is third person omniscient, as the narrator clearly knows the emotions of multiple people in the situation, the three princesses, but is not a character in the story. Our next example comes from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It reads, "The Dursleys hadn't even remembered that today happened to be Harry's 12th birthday. Of course his hopes hadn't been high. They'd never given him a real present, let alone a cake, but to ignore it completely." This is an example of third person limited as the narrator only knows the feelings of one character, Harry in this case, and is not a character within the story itself. Again, it is important to talk about how it can be analyzed and possible effects that come from using this perspective. The first thing is that it shows the emotions and feelings of many characters without worrying about an unreliable narrator. It can also help the tone achieve a mysterious vibe as you only know one character's feelings if it is limited. It also creates a diverse set of characters, and in the case of omniscient, shows contrasting personalities. It also provides an objective view of the world. How to remember omniscient? Omni, meaning all in Latin, and the definition omniscient, meaning all-knowing, helps you to remember that the narrator is omniscient. So they know everything. This correlates with third person omniscient, as the third person omniscient knows all the thoughts and feelings of every single character. Kind of like God, if you want to remember it that way. How to remember limited. The definition of limited is restricted in size, amount, knowledge, or extent, few, small, or short. This correlates with limited as they only know the feelings and thoughts of one character, but without them being the character. It's kind of like how the government is limited in the actions it can do, as you can see with my pictures. For a little bit, we'll go over second person, but it's not really needed to know much about it. The definition of second person is a point of view where the narrator tells a story to another character using the word you. It is less used and less important to know. It is often used in propaganda and ads, as in propaganda it's used to talk to the person viewing it, and same with ads.